he showed it to Ray, and Ray loved it.
Okay, we're in it right now. And then I'll go get that nitpick thing together and I'll upload it. Perfect. All right.
And I'll tee you up for the Michael Parsons thing.
Okay. Give me 1 second to get you ready. And then we'll start with, I need the Crawford Ost. Good. I forgot to do that there. So we do not have a countdown. So what I'm going to do actually. You ready then, sir?
Yep.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
That's right. You're in Central Texas right now. 21st floor of the Alico building here in Central Texas, Waco, Texas, to be exact. The Pete Sousa Show. I am Pete Sousa. This is presented by Slovacics. Slovacics and West is an opportunity, not so much a place to stop on a long drive or a quick drive if you're looking for kolaches, but it's an opportunity to experience not only some of the best food in Central Texas, Texas as a whole, but also some of the best people. And it is a must stop if you're driving through, oh, excuse me, I got a burp here. Excuse me. Wow. If you're driving on 35 and driving through Texas in Central Texas, you got to go to Slovacics. One of my favorite places. That's what's cool when you get a sponsor that you can actually buy into and love. So today we want to talk about something I really don't love, the Dallas Cowboys. I respect the Cowboys a great deal. Actually, before we talk about the Cowboys, we're in the Alico building, historic building here in Texas. And around this time every year in Texas, crickets, they take over. It's like a swarm, and they're everywhere. And they've camped out in the bathroom here at the Alico building in the 21st floor, on the 21st floor. Zach, what did you call them? A cricket?
I called it a cricket Thunderdome.
It is a cricket Thunderdome.
Because that's what it's like, just bodies everywhere.
How many, if you could guess? I started to count and I stopped. How many dead crickets or clinging to life crickets are there in that bathroom?
It feels close to 20 plus, maybe.
It is crazy. And crickets aren't cockroaches, so for some reason we've all decided it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, really. I mean, people aren't freaked out by it, but it's a lot. And that bathroom's already a lot because here in the Alico building, there's a restroom on every other floor. So as the show starts at 1 Central, that's after lunch for some people. So there's only 2 stalls in there. You get the idea. It's like a rest stop on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. You walk into the bathroom and you're like, why did I decide to come in here right now? So that's the state of affairs here at the Alico building. Beautiful building, historic building. And you got to come here if you get a chance to come to Waco, but stay out of the bathroom.
Well, they weren't always, I will say just real quick, they weren't always bad. It's just been like the past week or two.
Yeah. It's the what do you say? Infestation.
Yeah.
Infestation of crickets. Zach Burke on the Wheels of Steel today. We will be coming up with Cam Stewart. Cam will be at the bottom of the show. Before that, we'll talk to Nick Pick talking a little bit about the New York Yankees and Major League Baseball. And then Dan Ingham with First National Bank of Central Texas, a footballer for life. Will talk to us about Thursday Night Football, which he is broadcasting tonight on Channel 10 here locally in Central Texas, KWTX. And then we'll talk to him about the Cowboys, the Big 12, and Thursday Night Football. NFL, which starts tonight. We're going to start with the NFL as I go back to where I started. The Dallas Cowboys. I was, back as a much younger person, a real fan of the glitz and the glamour of the NFL. brought to me by people like these two guys here. Oh no, I don't have them up, but I got my Sports Illustrated cover with Mark Gastineau and Lawrence Taylor. There's something magical about having, and this is LT way more than Mark Gastineau. Something magical about a pass rusher and a defender who can just create havoc. And Lawrence Taylor, if you're of my generation, he could have been right there alongside Mr. T as pretty much like a superhero. Somebody who was out of a comic book. Not only the way he carried himself and the swagger off the field, but certainly the way he played off the field. It was like nothing you'd ever seen before. You always had to know where he was on the defense, on offense, excuse me, when you're playing the Giants. And the issue with that was he was lining up all over the place. How does that go to the Cowboys? Well, here it is. Micah Parsons has the opportunity to be someone who we talk about in the same breath as Lawrence Taylor. This season, Mike Zimmer, Cowboys defensive coordinator, somebody who I think will breathe a lot of life into that team, has all kinds of packages set up for Parsons specifically, where he can line up all over the field. Now, as I've understood it, the way football goes, and as I'm sure you all know, in order for a player like Micah Parsons to be able to wreak havoc, you need to have an advantage. You need to be winning the football game, really. If you're down in a game, you don't have the opportunities to get teams in second and long, third and long. And those are the doors that open for somebody like Micah Parsons just to storm through. He is an elite athlete and a performer that we may not see in a long time, or we haven't seen in a long time, rather, on the defensive side of the football. And remember, this is a Cowboys defensive side of the football that has lost some pieces, including Stephon Gilmore. So they probably will be more vulnerable this year than they were last year. Scheming-wise, though, obviously, like I mentioned, Mike Zimmer has some stuff up his sleeve. But here's Micah Parsons himself talking to the media yesterday about his role and the opportunity and excitement he has heading into this game.
Creative he'll be with your role.
I think on game day, I mean, I know y'all look at that like PFF stuff, but y'all gonna see I'm moving around a lot. Like, I don't think there is a side. I think each, I got my own personnels and stuff. It's gonna be exciting. I'm gonna say that, and I think I'll probably play every single person. And I think this is the first year where I could be in the 2-eye, I could be in the 3, I could be in the 4. I mean, it don't matter. Like, it could be a linebacker, be in the slot. I could almost be the safety if you look at it that way. In some
How many different positions you think he'll play? So?
I don't know. He got the packaging, but, at the same time, it's all about calling a good game. If we're giving up a lot on first down, it's going to be hard to get in those packages. If we're giving up, and, they're winning in the marks of the field sticks, all that stuff matters. But if we do what we do, I think I could play a lot of different positions.
So that's Micah Parsons there saying himself what needs to happen for him to be as effective and as efficient and be that type of player that can just completely create havoc on the defensive side of the football. Cowboys start their season Sunday afternoon, 3:25 kickoff. They play the Browns. They are right now a 3.5-point underdog, which could be a surprise initially when you look at it. But then if you dive deeper into the game, it makes a lot of sense. The Browns were pretty good last year, and they maybe on paper got better. The opportunity for Deshaun Watson to show out this year is really there for the Cowboys. Again, we had the opportunity in the offseason. I bounced it off Brad Sham here on the show. Hey, what do you think about the Cowboys and their opportunity to win the Super Bowl this year, possibly winning the NFC East? And he said, look, they have not gotten any better. On paper, they have gotten worse. So we will find out on Sunday exactly where the Cowboys are headed into the season. And remember, it's not how they start, it's how they finish. This is a team that over the past 2 years has been 12-5. Nobody other than the Kansas City Chiefs has been as good in the NFL. And the Chiefs kick things off for us tonight, regular season, by the way. The Chiefs kick things off tonight against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football. The Ravens going back in there after losing the AFC Championship last year. Just fun to get it underway. Can't wait for the NFL season to start. I know a lot of folks feel the same exact way. Back to Micah Parsons, there was something that was pretty cool about the opportunity we had, or the sound we heard from Parsons there. You heard a familiar voice, Ed Werder. And you notice, like, when you talk about media scrums and all that type of stuff that you get to see, you get excited about the fact that you hear an Ed Werder. That is someone who I mentioned, Lawrence Taylor, crashing through my television screen when I was a kid. Ed Werder was right there alongside him, covering the NFL, being there on ESPN and their pregame shows. And he was with ESPN, then wasn't with ESPN, then back with ESPN. Of course, Dallas Morning News, connected with our man, Matt Mosley. He's actually a member of the Rogue Media family on the Doomsday podcast he does with Matt Mosley, which is like just an amazing machine unto itself. That Doomsday pod is awesome for Dallas Cowboys fans. But hearing Ed Werder's voice, it's so cool to see a guy like that. Like he's so esteemed as someone who covers the Cowboys that you can always expect him, one, to be in the front of the biggest of media scrums, talking to guys like Jerry Jones, talking to guys like Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott back in the day. Just those major phrases where it's like, wow, how are we going to even get sound from this guy? Ed Werder is always right there front and center. And he's now, which is like one of those things is, I'm a local TV guy, right? I worked in local TV. I grew up in Philadelphia watching Action News. Ed Werder is now with WFAA, Channel 8 in Dallas. I'm not sure if he's covering just the Cowboys this season, but he is covering the Cowboys, and he will be on the quote-unquote beat for WFAA covering the Cowboys. What a beautiful partnership that is for WFAA and, of course, for Ed Werder, and another reason for any of us to listen to the Doomsday podcast. But so pumped to see Ed Werder crossing the street. Really, if you know the layout too, like the Dallas Morning News is here and WFAA is here, and he literally just crossed the street. And so that's really cool to see Ed Werder ending up back on the beat of the Dallas Cowboys. So another thing I want to talk about. So I got a game this week. I do play-by-play, get to call games for ESPN. So today I got to go pick up these boards, right? Now, these are like spotting charts. I still have to fill them out. We have coaches meetings today. The boards, this is North Texas and Stephen F. Austin. Now, why do these boards mean so much to me? Well, a couple reasons. One, because I'm just a football junkie and I've always done play-by-play, whether the television was turned down and I was calling it to myself, or whether the fact of the matter was I was actually calling a game and getting the opportunity. Right now by everybody's favorite. A little bit of sound there. No problem, Zach. You know what's funny, Zach? And we'll get back to that in a second. Everything was going great until Mike walked in here.
Well,
right? Mike, I mean, seriously though, everything was going fine.
No, let me do just one thing in Mike's defense about showing how the sausage is made. We got the Nick interview ready but it's too big, so I can't load it in like I usually do. So I had to load it in a separate way, so it played the audio. We're good now. We're back to where we were.
Yeah, and that's not it's welcome to distraction and an interruption around here. But Mike is sort of like Baba Booey from the Howard Stern show. He's got like the shirt untucked. I love it how he just kind of comes storming through the door. I do want to get you an open mic there, Mike, over there, just to kind of have. Do you want to say something? Yeah, you are, by the way. He is the heartbeat. There's nobody else. Mike Hamilton is the heartbeat of the Rogue Media Network. No, seriously. I hope not. I just got here. All right, back to these boards. They mean a lot to me because I'm a play-by-play junkie, and I've always been into what play-by-play guys do. These boards are what I'm talking about here. And I was also for a very long time, and still do today, if the right opportunity creates itself, to spot. And the spotting situation is one of the most – I just picked these up, by the way. You can get them. They get printed out at FedEx. Tony Britt Spotters Service is the company that ESPN uses, and I use anyways. And they actually send this document to the FedEx Kinkos, and the FedEx Kinkos will print it out for you. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool situation, but I used to spot for a very long time. So I know the importance of these boards. And I also know the importance of being a spotter. I was telling Zach and my man Cam a little story that I figured I'd share with you that goes into game day prep and spotting. Zach and Cam and I were talking offline here about Texas football. And Zach, you feel like Texas football, you basically feel like they're frauds. That's what you said.
Okay, fine. And not so many words. Yeah, just over a little bit.
So the way we were going into this, and Cam's giving a horns down off camera on off mic, pretty much where we hope to keep him. But Zach, we were having a conversation, and you mentioned, Texas holds itself in such an elite level, in such elite status among college football teams. But what did you see when you saw the NIL payouts or the payouts? I'm sorry.
I just feel, when I was talking about the EA Sports, the college football game, they based it on tier wise of what they paid the schools. And looking at that level, Texas was in tier 2, along with like Baylor and other schools like that. And they based it off the past 10 years of success on the football field, like awards won, bowl games, records, top 25 finishes, all that. So my point was, again, I'm not saying that there's not legacy and Texas has not added to college football as a whole. But sometimes I feel like they think they're on the level of Alabama when they're not.
And what did you say? You said
if you were on that level, you wouldn't let Kansas come into Austin and beat you.
So back to the story, which teed me up, which is something I like. This is I was a bad spotter. We had Matt Devlin from Fox Sports, and he's a Raptors play-by-play guy now. There was a time when I was young and I was like freaked out because literally, the game kicks off and you're responsible for pointing out for the play-by-play guy who makes the tackle, who makes the interception, who scores the touchdown. If you're not in the right headspace, you can get a little freaked out. And the first game I did with Matt, it was like in Oakland Coliseum, and there were like 80,000 people screaming. It was an NFL game, and my hand was shaking. I'm getting ready to spot for him. And he turns to me, he goes, "Are you nervous?" And I was nervous. So I understand the plight of being a spotter and understand the nerves. I would rather call the game than spot for someone, because if I'm calling the game and I make a mistake, that's on me. If I'm spotting for someone and I make a mistake, that can appear to be on them. And really, it's not. I mean, as a guy who does play-by-play myself, I think how prepared I am is really how much I'll need my spotter. So back to the Texas-Kansas story. Texas is playing Kansas. It's a Saturday night. It's a rough year for Texas already. Kansas is quietly on the come up. This is 2021, the fall of 2021. Anyways, Texas is starting to blow this game. They had a lead. I remember Xavier Worthy had a couple big plays. He's getting ready to start his career tonight with the Kansas City Chiefs. Anyways, down the stretch, Kansas started to have this guy bubble up. And Cam, can you find out who that guy was that scored the touchdown? Cam Stewart. He's on it for us right now. So Kansas beats Texas, and this guy scores a touchdown at the end. Now, leading up to that play, I kept seeing this guy on the field. I was like, who's 46? I'm spotting for Roy Philpott. Who's 46? I didn't know. Now, Roy doesn't have this guy on this massive board I just showed you. He was not on the board. He was on the roster. So I located the guy on the roster. His name is Cam, Zach.
I'm looking it up right now.
We're on a roll here. The guy who caught the game-winning touchdown for Kansas against Texas. Doesn't matter.
I mean, Devin Neal did in 2021.
Devin Neal, that was it. So, okay. So,
I don't think.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The game. Yes, that's it. Who is it?
Okay. Jared Casey.
Jared
was the
Casey.
2-point conversion.
You guys are the best. Eventually, we got there. Thank you very much. So, Jared Casey was a walk-on. He did not play. And I saw him appearing on the field little by little. And I wrote on Roy's board, I just wrote 46, Jared Casey, in case something crazy happened. Well, on the last play of the game, which these guys just reminded me, was not a touchdown. It was a 2-point conversion. Casey had a reception. I'll work on this gas. Casey had a reception, and that was it. Kansas won the game. And I was like so proud of myself that I wrote him down. I was like, poof. And trust me, I am not the best spotter out there, but I appreciated that. That was an estimable act. So I'm looking forward to North Texas and Stephen F. Austin. I have some meetings later on after this show. That game, ESPN, pretty pumped about it. And how about Stephen F. Austin? The one thing I discovered like last week when I was getting ready for this game, they played a game against an NAIA school where they won 77-0. And they actually, the second half, they played 5-minute quarters with a running clock. And so there's a lot to unpack there, as the kids say. We got Dan Ingham coming up. We're going to have Nick pick first, talking about the Yankees and what's going on with them. It's been a long time since I had the opportunity to catch up with Nick. And as we get more down the stretch with the baseball season, especially into the fall, he is a guy that we will be hearing from. Little break here. Can't forget about our partners from Daniel Sark Injury Lawyers and Crawford Austin Real Estate, Socorro Family Ford, D1. And of course, we started off, you can't forget Slovacics. Right back with Nick Pick.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We mentioned it was baseball season. Of course it is, and we're headed down the stretch. That's what I wanted to say, that we're headed towards the postseason. Last month of the regular season here, as far as the MLB is concerned. So it's time to catch up with Nick Pick. Nick was actually on the move when we did. Typical, right, as far as me setting up an interview. He was on the move, so appreciate that. He made time for us. He talked to us about the Yankees. And then at the very end, he asked me a college football trivia question, which you can wait and find out to see if I got it right. But here's Nick Pick. Joined right now by everybody's favorite Uber driver.
That's
Nick,
right.
Nick Pick. Nick, what is happening?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. Just some of us have to work for a living, unlike you. So, I stopped in, put it in park, and here we are for a couple minutes.
Part of your work for the Pete Sousa Show, and far beyond, is the New York Yankees and covering the Yankees.
Yeah, what a time you picked, huh?
Bro, like 15 minutes ago, I just saw John Sterling is possibly back to call postseason games.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Sure, that's fine. Maybe he'll bring us some good luck, dude. It'll be fine. But it's okay, whatever he wants to do. I don't care too much. Like it's generally positive news, but it's really like not that big of a deal.
How has the coverage of the Yankees been on TV? I know they've tried some different stuff this season. What have you thought about that?
Well, TV's the same. TV is MK and then the same guys.
Okay, so radio is switched. Like I saw Brandon Tierney call a game.
I'm not gonna lie, Pete. I don't watch the game, or I don't listen to games on radio because I'm not on WFAN 660. Although I do know they got Carton in there for like 3 games. Dude, Carton used to bash Susan Waldman, and then the next thing you know, he's doing games with her. Like, what a wild world we live in.
100%. All right, so you guys lost last night to the Rangers.
Indeed.
What are you seeing from the Yankees as we head down the stretch?
A lot of concerning trends. I feel like they are a great matchup against some teams and a really bad matchup against others.
Give me an example.
They will not beat the Astros because they can't hit left-handed pitching. It's crazy. Left-handed starting pitching, just like, I don't get it. It like puts this team's brain in a pretzel. It's insane. And you'd think with somebody like Judge having, his historic season that like, and Giancarlo Stanton, that like lefties wouldn't be a problem. Lefty starters just mow this team down. So they have Framber, they have Kikuchi, Josh Hader, their closer's left-handed. I mean, like, I don't think the Yankees will beat the Astros if that's what it comes to. I don't worry so much about the Orioles. The Orioles pitching is not very good. Minnesota will probably be fine against. But like Cleveland, I don't like either. I don't like Cleveland. Cleveland's bullpen's really good. They got like 4 guys down there with like a sub-2 ERA. It's not the best matchup in the world. So we'll see. I think the Yankees bullpen is nothing short of a disaster. Nothing short of a disaster. A complete oversight by management and the front office to address it at the deadline. Give up legitimate prospects for it at the deadline. Just they are the definition of the team that thinks they're better than you, smarter than you, and they'll just get it done because of that. And I really hope the bullpen doesn't come back and bite them in the ass in October, but obviously Clay Holmes is a problem. I mean, obviously.
Everywhere you turn around, the people are talking about that. If you're looking at baseball,
the thing is that like Clay's analytical numbers are very good, very, very, very good. He gets unlucky, but you don't get unlucky 11 times. You know what I mean? There's something about Clay Holmes in the 9th inning that just doesn't work. Be it that the ground balls find too many holes, the infield defense is just at times a disaster. And so ground balls plus a shaky infield defense leads to some of these things. Holmes is known, which he's not done this year, he's known to just like lose command and control and just like you never know where the ball's going certain times throughout the year. That happened against Texas the other night, and then he gave up the grand slam to Langford. I don't know, but the thing is that there's no one right now in the bullpen that's better than him. So do you put Heel there in the 9th inning and see if Heel can get some outs because he throws like legit smoke? Maybe. But we've seen Heel get squeezed on a couple calls and get frustrated and walk some guys and give him some hits and get in his own head. I mean, he's a young kid. So, like, I don't know what the bullpen's answer is, but Megamind Boone will figure it out, I'm sure.
Hey, what about Aaron Judge? I got to ask you that before I let you go, and I got one more thing I want to ask you. So
yeah,
this is second to last thing. So no, I mean you watch every game. You have for a very long time. You are dialed in, watching and covering this team. What has this joyride been like to watch Aaron Boone?
Well, it's funny you say that because I come here with facts. Since the National Series, Aaron Judge is 6 for his last 34. So, it's safe to say it's a slump. And he's not hit a homer in 9 games, which is the longest streak of the season. So, not great, Bob. But the rest of the year, save for the past, 6 games, I mean, it's been unbelievable. He's, one of 5 guys only to have 3 50-plus homer seasons. Like Bonds didn't even do that, He gets, I've never seen a guy besides Barry Bonds get intentional walks with no one on base, the bases loaded with persons. I mean, just what he was doing from June to August was insanity. It was absolute insanity. It's just I don't know. It's hard to come up with the words to say it because we've only seen it once before. So to see it again when I never thought I'd see it again, and I'm old enough to appreciate how amazing he is pretty cool.
Yeah, you look pretty handsome today, so that's good. I mean, you look.
I got the button down a little bit. I was in front of the execs today, so we.
Last one. You're beautiful, soon to be, should be by now. I mean, talk about outkicking the coverage. Fiance. But right now, you're still your girlfriend. I don't know what is going on over there time-wise. How long you guys been together?
8 years yesterday.
8 years yesterday. Who reminded you of the anniversary?
Pete Sousa, the Sousa dog.
I remember when you guys got together. So does she care at all? Is she more invested in football? Like
She is way more invested in LSU losing to SC than she is about anything the Yankees could do.
Well, no, but what about Taylor Swift going to the Chiefs game tonight? I just saw that.
Is she?
Is she any more invested, Shelly?
Shelly could give a shit less about Taylor Swift.
Okay.
Shelly, like, I got to give Shelly props. Like, Shelly's a football girl. Like, Shelly's truly, like, we've been watching Receiver.
Yeah.
And so she'd be like, you know, when St. Brown talked about, like, tearing his oblique off his bone or whatever, you know, like, Shelly was like, how does that affect the Lions? Like, what does that mean for the Lions? And I was like, well, it's old, so it means nothing. But, like, you know, like, Shelly's a football kid. She really likes football.
You're the man. I got to go because we're up against time.
Wait, I'm going to tell you two things.
You can't wait me.
I gotta. You're a big time play-by-play guy now. You're very rich and famous now, as we like to say. I got a question for you. There are 3 college coaches active that have won a national title. Do you know who they are?
Well, what's his face at Clemson?
Yeah. What's his face is good. You're going to say that on Saturday when you call the game?
There's
what's his face, Coach what's his face on the sideline.
Kirby Smart.
Right. So that's 2. Who's the third? You're going to get the third one?
Oh, Mac Brown.
Wow. I didn't know if you'd get Mac Brown. That'll boy.
I'm old, man. Come on.
Sue's dog, baby.
Yo, we'll see you next week. I appreciate you, Nick.
You guys are great.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports Pete.
Back here at the Alico building, we are joined by the handsome and tall. And not me.
Yeah.
Not me. I'm talking about Dan Ingham. Dan, First National Bank of Central Texas. You're joining us today. We're going to take it to the bank in a little bit with some picks that you have, which people are obviously going to wait for now. First thing I want to ask you, we're in the Alico building, 21st floor. You've been around Central Texas for a long time. What's up with the crickets, dude? We were talking about the crickets in the bathroom. It was like the Thunderdome of crickets in there.
And they come all about this time of year. We've had them at the bank, which is 4 or 5 miles from here where I work. And you'll walk into work and you are walking through a minefield of crickets. So I don't know what it is about this time of year. Is it entomology? Is that the study of insects? I think possibly.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
all right. You know better than me.
Well, I learned a little bit in college what it meant, but that's about. We need to get an entomologist on the show and probably get an answer better than I could. Yeah.
Well, do you think obviously I feel the crickets are sort of harmless. So if you walked into the bathroom and there were 25 cockroaches, you'd freak out probably.
Sure.
On some level.
Yeah.
But there's crickets and it's just like, oh, let me tiptoe around the crickets that are alive and hopefully don't disrespect the ones that are already dead.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't worry about it. But yeah, if it's a cockroach, I'm getting a call from my wife. Like literally, like we've had them in the house before occasionally, and she'll cordon off that room and wait till I get home. To take care of it. So, the duties of a husband, right there. Yeah.
You show up, there's police tape.
Yes,
Yeah.
just about. She's like, you need to go in there. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Well, tonight you need to go over to Chaparral. You don't need to. You want to.
That's right.
High school football here in Central Texas. You can watch it on the CW. You can stream it on KWTX.com and KWTX Facebook page. What do you think about tonight's matchup? In a sense that we've got Thursday night football back on broadcast television here in Central Texas. Just a cool opportunity for people to take in the pageantry of high school football and the best state in the country for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of live stream games right now, and they're good broadcasts, but we really take a lot of pride. And this is a professional broadcast with really good camera crews. Production levels are high. So I'm excited to work with Royden Ogletree, Darby Brown, who I think you had on the show earlier this week.
Yeah.
The three of us will be calling Chaparral versus Manor New Tech, two teams that are relatively new high schools. I think Manor New Tech only started playing football like 6 years ago, Chaparral 3 years ago, but they're both 1-0. So a battle of unbeaten teams tonight at Cyril Stadium in Killeen.
I do love that when, no matter who, and this goes back to my, I think, college football fandom days, like when I was a real little kid, like when it's almost like a boxer, like you can't have any losses or you're finished. So it's always more exciting just to see the records clean. Both teams are 1-0.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that's when, and the truth is it's a non-district game. So in terms of playoff seeding, it doesn't mean anything. But when you're Chaparral, who has not had a winning record yet, has had two coaches now in 3 years, getting to 2-0 would mean a lot for them. Just in terms of confidence, it makes those practices, if they're, right after school when it's hot, a lot more fun when you're 2-0, I would imagine.
Now, that's a school, I think you're right. The program started 3 years ago. They're in their third year, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
You just said that. So what do you think it takes for a program like that to start to turn the corner? Time?
So there are probably some news.
Not personnel, not coaching, just like this institution in general to take flight, for the varsity football team.
Yeah, I would think if you have a middle school feeder program set up that does well. I mean, the best football programs are the ones where like kids starting at age like 6 want to play for that program. And so when you can kind of get started in that, and that's a challenge in Killeen because it's such a bigger community now with, 5 or 6 high schools now, like 20 middle schools. So it's a little harder. It's a little bit more of a transient community because of, Fort Cavazos there, almost said Fort Hood.
Welcome to the human race.
Folks would have known what I was talking about, but the reality is just some consistency is what it takes. And buy-in from the parents, that kind of thing. You look at Harker Heights, the dominant program of Killeen ISD. You've got the largest PTA, or the largest fan booster program of all the high schools there, and that kind of adds up right there to a program that has the resources and the want to and the desire to get a bunch of W's. Yeah, I mean it's just really interesting to watch the evolution of a high school football program. We've all seen it, right? And they had to go right to 5A. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, that is a Herculean task. Yeah, sometimes you see these new high schools that they maybe start with the smaller numbers and they get to work from 4A to 5A to 6A, but Chaparral didn't get that benefit. No, they did not get that opportunity. It's basically like going right to Division 1A. Yeah. Not a good look. Very tough road to hoe. All right. I want to talk to you about the Big 12. Sure. You're an Oklahoma State guy. That's right. I'll even venture to call you an expert. You're going to the game. I don't know about expert, but I follow Oklahoma State and Baylor probably closer than any other programs. How about that? All right, that's a legitimate answer. So what are your thoughts? Week 2, huge game, Arkansas at home, 11 a.m. on Saturday. It's about as good as an early college football season game you'll get right on the schedule, especially in Stillwater. Yeah, it's pretty unusual for an SEC team to come to Stillwater. I think there's been like 2 in the last 30 years or so. That's kind of unusual. And this is a series that they played every year for like 30 years because Fayetteville and Stillwater are about 2.5, 3 hours apart. They're not that far apart, but they haven't played since the early 80s. And it just makes a lot of sense. I think they're going to play like 8 times in the next 10 years, something like that. Oklahoma State, I think we knew they were pretty good and they were in a pretty workmanlike effort. They took good care of a good team. We talked about it, South Dakota State. They were efficient, kind of workmanlike. They got the W by like 25 points, something like that. Arkansas, we have no idea how good they are. I mean, I think they're
Pine
better
Bluff.
offensively, but they beat Arkansas Pine
Yeah.
Bluff, who, you know, if you saw that, they took 5 minutes off the quarters in the second
Oh, they
half.
did?
Yeah, they kind of, the coaches agreed and said, let's get this thing over with.
And that was a 70-0.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that tells you what kind of game we're talking about. But they got a transfer quarterback in from Boise, so that's a long way of saying I think it should be a good game. I still think Oklahoma State's the better team and they should win. They're about a 7.5 point favorite. So I think they're the better team and they should win.
What do you think about these the buy-in games? You know, where you have to. I did a game in Stillwater a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was Pine Bluff and Oklahoma State. Some people get their feathers ruffled about those games. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, so from a fan's perspective, is it a fun game? Not really. It's not a lot to get excited about. But if you're Arkansas Pine Bluff or a team that's taking that, I'm guessing they get $1 million ish. I mean, that helps fund their softball team, their baseball team, their golf team. I mean, that's how they help fund their athletic department. They don't get the kind of revenues that an Arkansas or an Oklahoma State gets. And so they depend on that football revenue to be able to fund their entire athletic department. So they kind of have to. So I get it from that perspective.
Anything else from the Big 12 that jumped out to you last week?
I thought the two best teams were Utah and Oklahoma State going in. There's a lot of love for K-State, and those two looked the best. I thought Arizona looked good as well. So there, overall, there weren't a lot of great games. West Virginia did not play as well as we had hoped against a very good Penn State team. Baylor, took care of business. Looks like they're a little bit better offensively. Again, I don't know how much we know about Baylor. We'll know a lot more after this week. Texas Tech, but concerning that it took overtime, but one game does not define a season. So overall, I'd say, that's how I'd wrap up the first week of the Big 12.
How do you feel about Baylor going into Utah? I mean, that's a very exciting game on the schedule. I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, it's an awesome matchup. It would have been a great matchup if it weren't this weird non-conference game, but that's a fun matchup. I mean, two Power 5 teams going at it in a non-conference game, but whatever. They're in the same conference. But either way, Utah, if you look at the list of the best 10, 12 programs over the last decade, Utah would be on that list.
Yeah.
So that in that sense, I think it's a really fun matchup.
We talk about Thursday Night Football starting tonight, and it's on NBC, prime time. NFL's back. Chiefs and Ravens. Anything from that game? Any prediction you have? Anything you're looking forward to?
I think we'll get a lot of shots of Taylor Swift in the suites, more than likely.
What do you think about that? I think NBC's got to be like fist pumping.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that just came out right before we sat down.
I mean, it's called good TV.
Yeah.
The reality is it's not going to take away from the game. I mean, they go to good cutaways all the time. They're not going to not show any action. So what? It's fun. My daughter, she was a Travis Kelce fan now, so it's fun. What the heck? Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. What do you think about the Dallas Cowboys? Starting off, they're 3.5-point underdogs against the Browns, which to me, I've talked about it a couple of times here, is sort of revealing. It kind of lets you know the reality of the situation because Vegas isn't wrong very often.
You're right. And there's also the, what do they call it? The Dallas Cowboys tax in Vegas because so many people like to bet the Cowboys, the more popular team. So sometimes you'll see those lines move the other direction just because so many bets come in one way. But that's neither here nor there. When it comes to the Cowboys, the thing that makes me worry, obviously there's the Dak Prescott issue, will he or won't he sign, that kind of deal, but he's playing this year and he can compartmentalize, but the running back room is just not that strong. You got Ezekiel Elliott back as the starting running back. That's odd to me. I mean, 8th-year running back, these guys don't get better as they age typically. I was looking up his career stats. He averages about 4.5 yards a carry. However, the last 2 years, he's averaged like 3.5 and then like 3.3 yards per carry, something like that.
Yeah.
So
I think you're trying to get blood from a stone at this point. Yeah, I really do.
Well, he's a guy he's not your number one.
Yeah.
I mean, even though he's number one on their depth chart, he's not a number one anymore. He can still help you, but so that makes me a little nervous, the running back room.
When you talk about predictions this weekend, take it to the bank with Dan Ingham. Anything you have that, we lock, throw that out. I don't believe in anything like a lock. What do you like?
All right. Well, I mean, the reality is I just talked about them. I still think the Dallas Cowboys are going to go win. I mean, so I got 2 underdogs that I think are going to win. One, the Dallas Cowboys. I saw 2.5.
So you think they're going to win?
I do. I really do. I think they're going to win outright. I think that so I would take the money line pick of the Cowboys. I think they're going to win. I am not convinced that Deshaun Watson is anywhere near where he used to be. However, the rest of that team is pretty good, including their defense. So it could be tough for the Cowboys to win, but I think they go win. And another lock, in the college game.
I love it. They are locks.
I work at a bank. Let's say lock, whatever, Your First National Bank of Central Texas lock from Dan Ingham. I would say Iowa State goes on the road and beats Iowa, and they are playing for what trophy, Pete?
They are playing for, it's not Farmageddon, it is
the Cy Hawk Trophy.
That's it. I wouldn't have got
What
that.
a
You
that
told me a
just rolls
second ago.
off the tongue. They've been playing since the 19th century in football. So I'm an old Big 8 guy from back in the day. So I'm going to root for Iowa State in this one. And I think they're going to win. I think Matt Campbell last year, they took some lumps. If you remember before last year, they had like 10 guys get kicked off the team for gambling, essentially. So they had to play a bunch of freshmen.
Yeah.
Well, those guys are sophomores and juniors now that have experience. So I think Iowa State goes on the road in Iowa City and beats the Hawkeyes.
Starting quarterback, Rocco Becht, son of Anthony Becht,
There you go.
Grew up playing football, literally against me.
Really?
We were the same grade.
That's cool.
Yeah, really. And first-round draft pick by the Jets. He's a pretty good player out of West Virginia. All right, Dan, anything going on at First National Bank of Central Texas?
Man, we're still like I think we talked about it last week. If you want some headphones maybe to take to the game and
Beats by Dan.
That's right. Beats by Dan. Just come in and say you want Beats by Dan. Any of our 7 locations, come by, open up a new checking account. You get one of those bad boys right there. Learn more at fnbct.bank.
And Dan Ingham, you can watch him tonight.
That's right.
On the CW. We got high school football kicking off. It is Chaparral against Maynard New Tech. Dan, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it, Pete.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
The Alico building, Pete Sousa. I am joined by the one and only host of the Cam Show. He's headed over to hold hands with Matt Mosley and make magic on the Mosley Show later on today. Cam Stewart, Boston's own. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
I don't know that I'm
love
gonna-
being on the Pete Sousa show.
I don't know that I'm going to intro you anymore because you're going to
Just
be
a
here.
guy, just
Yeah. No, I mean
total
like
jag.
you're a regular.
Yeah.
And
I am irregular, sure.
no, you're a regular. Do you like the old saying? He's a friend of the show.
I say that all the time.
Friend
I
of the
say that.
show.
I make the loosest connections ever to say friend of the show. Yeah.
Well, I throw around expert loosely. Dan just shut me down. All right, so
I noticed you don't use that for me, so
no, I think I my theory is like you guys are all real people with backgrounds and opinions and thoughts. Here comes Mike. Mike Hamilton.
Mike, you missed it. Pete
I
just
mean-
called me a real person. I think he was getting to talking about me. So I'm really that's a step up from what he usually calls me, you know? So,
All right, Mike
yeah.
loves it. He loves the treehouse up here. We are moving and grooving, and we got Cam.
I don't think we should ever show Mike because we reference him. He doesn't come on mic. He doesn't come on camera. I don't want.
He's like, you know what?
I want
was
the
like,
the people to picture who he is, like you're reading To Kill
This
a
is
Mockingbird
before
for the
your
first
time. But
You know?
Chuck was the brother on Happy Days in the first season.
Yes.
Do you know
he
this?
dribbled his basketball up the stairs and was never seen again.
Never. That was Mike. He's like Chuck. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And people forget the first season of Happy Days. When they do Rock Around the Clock as the theme song.
Yeah.
People forget that. And they forget that for like the whole first season, Fonzie is not wearing a leather jacket.
Dude,
He's
how do
wearing
you-
like a windbreaker.
what
It's
do you-
just- yeah, it's just a regular jacket.
where do you get all this intel from? I mean, I know this.
That's a big Bill Stewart one, man.
Nice
He's
job.
like, if there's something he's defending to the end, it's that in season 1, Fonzie was not wearing a leather jacket. People forget. I like a good episode of Happy Days, man.
I like this Bill Stewart.
I really like Happy Days' regular theme song. Rock Around the Clock is fine, but
I like the Rock Around the Clock one.
Beginnings of Rock and Roll, probably the first rock and roll song.
This is
Bill
unbelievable.
Haley in his comments. Mike and I were talking some 50s rock today.
Oh.
Whenever I see these crickets here, I think of Buddy Holly, my
I
big
can't
time
believe
Buddy
the
Holly.
crickets.
We're talking a lot of Big Bopper
Big
today.
Bopper died
Yes.
in a plane crash.
You're
Correct?
kidding.
With Richie Valens.
Surely there was no
And
bigger
Buddy
star
Holly.
than that. No.
Okay.
Are you shit? That
I
is
hate
like
to
such
give-
a momentous occasion. You
I
might
hate-
as well like
I hate
give
to-
it a nickname. You
I
know?
hate to deliver you the bad news. What was the nickname?
February make you shiver or something?
What was the nickname? Was there a nickname?
The day the music died? You ever
Ah.
heard of her?
All right, guys. No, he's not.
Dude, we could do a whole. In fact, if I make it to February 3rd at Rogue Media Sports Network, we will be doing a tribute.
Really?
Yes, to the 4 lives lost. People forget Roger Peterson, the pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great intel.
21-year-old pilot, man.
I'm really
I
like,
love Buddy Holly, brother.
I got a lot of respect for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. That was the last show they played.
And that was when
February
they all
2nd.
now I remember it from the Richie Valens La Bamba movie. They all
Yes,
pile on this
which has it a
small
little
plane.
bit wrong, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And in they are?
Said they're
They're
remaking,
remaking
La
La Bamba.
Bamba.
This is not a time for jokes,
Wait,
really?
We've heard, we know the end of the story though. We know,
We
like,
knew,
you know what I
we knew
mean?
it all
It's-
along, Cam. Actually, I didn't when I saw it in the movie theater as a kid. I was like shocked.
I had to tell Mosley the story on the air once. He it was like a great moment for me. He was like, "Yeah, something. There were a plane crash somewhere in the Midwest, and someone was supposed to be on the plane. Cam, do you know the story about that? You know some music stuff." And I said, "Let me tell you." Okay, they play the Surf Ballroom. It's part of the winter dance party tour. Okay, and it was this horrendously put together music tour in like January, February in the upper Midwest. And the route didn't make any sense. They weren't going like in a circle. They were going all over the place, and they were in a tour bus. And it was obviously like sub-zero the whole time. And they kept having problems with this bus, kept breaking down, and the heater would break. And like one of the guys had to go in the hospital because he had frostbite so bad and hypothermia because he was on the bus. And so Buddy Holly, when they're playing at the Surf Ballroom on February 2nd, he says, enough of this shit. Okay. We're going to Fargo and Moorhead, Minnesota next. So I'm going to charter a flight. I'm sick of this. We're going to get there ahead of time. We're going to do some laundry. We're going to spend the night in a bed where it's warm. And so he charters a flight. And it was originally supposed to be for his band. And this is what Mosley was asking about. He's like, someone famous was supposed to be on that plane. It's right. It's Waylon Jennings was supposed to be on the plane. He was performing with the Crickets, not the original Crickets, and he was on tour with them. It's cold over here. I feel like I'm on the bus.
Keep going. This is
oh
like your
man.
best work.
So, originally it was supposed to be him in the band, and it was the Big Bopper wanted to go on, and so did Richie Valens. Did not. He was afraid of planes. There was this childhood incident that you saw in La Bamba.
Yes.
A plane fell out of the sky, basically, in his elementary school. So he's afraid of flying. And he was pretty sick. He had bad flu. And so it was like, Buddy was like, it would really help you if you went ahead of time, spent the night in a bed, right? And so he gets to go on because he's sick. He's the kid. And the Big Bopper gets to go on because he won a coin flip with Waylon Jennings. And this is like at the airport that he wins the coin flip. And so Waylon Jennings kind of bantering with Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly says, tough break. Hope your old bus freezes up. And he goes, yeah, well, I hope your damn plane crashes. And they barely make it out of the air. It was never supposed to happen. I mean, it was like almost a blizzard in Clear Lake. Mason City is actually.
Why did they go ahead? Was it just complete ignorance on the pilot's part? You mentioned he was 21 years old.
It was actually, if I remember this part of the story correctly, the pilot was the one who told the guy who was running the charters, like, no, we can't fly out of this. And the owner was like, it's Buddy Holly. It's Richie Valens, like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And it barely made it off the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done, Cam.
I know my Day the Music Died, my Winter Dance Party tour. Dion and the Belmonts, which was also one of the headliners. You probably know their song Run Around Sue.
Sure.
Still alive. Dion DiMucci is still alive.
I'll keep away from a run around.
Yeah,
Sue.
it's some big hits. They're actually the first song that's played ever in the history of The Sopranos. There's that great scene in the pilot where they're tracking down this guy in their car.
Yes, the guy who was the gambler who owed money.
Yes,
and he's with
they're
he's
playing I Wonder Why. By
yes.
I love me some Buddy Holly. We saw someone at a wedding a few months ago, and I was like, oh, where are you guys at now? And these guys in the military, and he's like, we're in fucking New Mexico. No one's ever heard of it, Clovis. And I'm like, yeah, that's where Buddy Holly used to record. He used to drive from Lubbock to Clovis. And they're like, I cannot believe you know.
No, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he only died 38 years before I was born. So
it is sort of shocking that you would know all this.
I love me some Buddy Holly. Gary Busey playing Buddy Holly in the Buddy Holly story. You ever seen that one?
Well, he was nominated for an Oscar.
Which is ridiculous. That movie kind of stinks.
He was nominated for an Oscar.
And it's also not a great portrayal. It's not like bad, but it's not really.
And that was 1980, correct?
78.
78. So he was nominated for the Oscar in 78.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is a great time for movies, man.
A really good time. What other movies do you, off the top of your head, can you tell me any other Oscar nominations from 78?
78, the winner was The Deer Hunter. Well, that was technically the 79 Oscars. Came out in 78.
Yeah.
So 78 then would have had All the President's Men. A New Hope, Star Wars is 77. 76 is really a great year. That's Taxi Driver. That's Rocky. That's there's another really big one in there. 74 is The Godfather 2, Chinatown 73, Godfather 1 72. So you got like a really great run. French Connection in 71.
Yeah.
The Conversation, I think, is 73. Like really great.
Like you mentioned,
right
a
in
lot
my
of
wheelhouse,
classics.
man. I love.
Do you listen to the rewatchables ever?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's an episode by episode thing.
Yeah.
I think they
2 minutes, Zach. Okay.
I think they misjudge a lot of those.
What do you mean?
Like the whole point of it is supposed to be movies that you could watch over and over, and it's like classic.
Yeah.
And I think they interpret it as, here are great movies we're going to talk about, because they talk about like Schindler's List. Like that's not a rewatchable movie.
But they'll give each other. But
Yeah.
having listened to so many of them, I'd say I've listened to 90% of the library.
I've listened to like 4.
Really, I mean, I remember the first episode they did, the rewatchables, when it was Chris Ryan and Bill Simmons. They did Heat, and they didn't even know they were doing it. That it was a rewatchable, and then it became one. And now they've done Reheat, and then they did Heat 3 with Michael Mann, or they talked about Heat for a third time. Anyways, they do give each other a hard time for like, why are we doing Schindler's List? It's not a rewatchable
It's not at all,
movie.
man.
It's a classic.
And even like Oppenheimer, is that a rewatchable movie?
No.
Great movie.
I
Great, fantastic movie.
So do you think
I've seen it twice.
in
but
20 years? Okay, so in 20 years when we look back at
I love these
Oppenheimer,
questions. Yeah.
well, in 20 years when we look back at Oppenheimer, people won't be like, "Why was Oppenheimer nominated?" No.
I don't think that necessarily, but I think about this a lot with Oscar nominated movies of like, I'll use one from my wheelhouse, like The King's Speech. Great movie. Social Network is a better movie. It's better. It was a better movie then,
Yes.
and it's a better movie to watch now. Like, what are you more likely to watch 20 years later?
Social Network, I would watch it today.
1000%. So like
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, you say, well, that's still a great movie, but you know, what are the other ones that would have been easier to watch now? Maybe it's The Holdovers. I don't know, that has huge staying power. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Even as long as it is, Killers of the Flower Moon, I think is going to be easier to rewatch in 20 years than Oppenheimer. It just is. And I don't know. It's also so big into the production that I don't know if those techniques will still hold up. So I love doing that. We should do that for some Oscar movies.
Dude, I would love to.
I love
I think
analyzing
we've
that
stumbled
stuff,
on.
man.
That's the magic of this whole thing.
It's like ordinary people, you know.
Ordinary People. That was like a
groundbreaking for its time.
Well, when I was a
Chariots of Fire, you know.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, those were the kind of movies like my parents were watching, and it was a huge deal because I couldn't watch them with them. My father, who had probably had a little bit too much to drink, cracked his ribs walking in to see Chariots of Fire in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania in what, 83?
81, I think.
81. Yeah, he cracked his
You
ribs.
double
And
check
it
that.
was kind of like my Uncle Marty was there. They helped him up and whatever.
I've watched Clash of the Titans more. That's also from 81.
I've never been the same.
Special effects.
Scorpions are horrible as it is. All right, Zach Burke is taking us out of here. Cam, man, that was an awesome combo. Thanks to Dan Ingham. Thanks to First National Bank of Central Texas, of course. Always thanks to Slovacics and all our other sponsors. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be doing it from the road in Denton, Texas. More on that later, but no more of this left today.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We are Rogue Media Sports.